and it took 5 guys to keep him on the bed, because he was super wild. But the other one, the 9-year-old, was the one that ended up walking on the wall backwards.
In 2011, the devil came to Gary, Indiana, and this gave rise to one of the most compelling and best documented cases of demonic possession of the last 100 years. I'm David Gordon, and we're bringing you a can't miss mic'd up this week on the topic of exorcism. Shortly after Latoya Ammons and her family moved to a house on quiet Carolina Street in Gary, she started experiencing preternatural phenomena. Lights flickered, swarms of flies attacked the porch, spectral footsteps sounded at night, doors creaked when no one had moved them, and large wet boot prints manifested on the floor from out of nowhere. And while these things started off as merely disquieting and irksome, they quickly progressed to being nothing short of aggressively malevolent. One night, Ammons' daughter, then 12 years old, was suspended above her bed, levitating unconsciously. The daughter would go on to tell health professionals that she sometimes felt an invisible presence choking her and heard a voice telling her she'd never see her family again. Ammons' sons, 7 and 9, likewise came under diabolical influence. The 7-year-old would converse in a closet with a phantom boy who would describe to him what it felt like to be killed. And the same 7-year-old boy was once flung, inexplicably, with no one touching him, into a wall. When examined by medical professionals, the boys would curse at them, then pass out. The 7-year-old would grasp his brother by the throat and, with eyes rolling into the back of his head, announce that it's time to die and that he'd kill him. Famously, perhaps most famously, the 9-year-old, in a room staffed by medical professionals at the local Methodist hospital, glided backwards up a wall to the ceiling and flipped back to his feet. Ultimately, the hospital chaplain thought it best to reach out to Father Michael Maginot, a priest of St. Stephen Martyr Parish in Merrillville. Father Maginot would go on to investigate the events plaguing the Ammons family and to perform first minor and then major exorcisms to deliver the family from the clutches of the devil and his fell minions. We're honored to be joined today by Father Michael Maginot. How's it going, Father?
Oh, pretty good, David.
Thanks so much for being here. I know you made the drive from Indiana, so we're most gracious and appreciative for your time. Now, just starting things off, can you give the audience a little bit of your background? You mentioned before the show you've been a priest for 40 years, but
Yes.
Can you tell the mic'd up viewers what are your priestly bona fides?
Okay. Yes, I have 2 degrees, one in biblical theology and another in canon law as well. And when I was, I also have been the last 23 years at St. Stephen the Martyr Parish in Merrillville, Indiana. And that is where I first got involved with exorcisms with this famous Ammons case. And happily, I just happened to be called upon by accident because I was covering for our Catholic priest chaplain. He has 2 days off on Friday and Saturday. And so it was Friday morning, and I was just doing my normal little prayer group with Bible study. When I got the call from the Methodist chaplain that a boy just walked up the wall backwards at the Gary campus of the hospital and asked me to come over to do an exorcism. And so I said, well, I do have to get permission from the bishop, but if what you described, by others, professionals who saw this, yeah, it sounds like you definitely, there's a case there.
It's not ordinary run-of-the-mill behavior in your 9-year-old boy.
Oh, yes.
Right, of course. So you were kind of called in incidentally. It wasn't something that you had specialized in before. You had no previous history as an exorcist. And, investigating this, it looks like the diocese actually says, Father, on its website, Father is not like the diocesan, he doesn't hold the office of diocesan exorcist.
Okay.
Yeah. So this was your first experience with that then?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I mean, getting a call like that, what went through your head?
Well, I felt I could do an investigation. It was definitely intriguing because, yeah, it was. If professional people saw this, I was kind of interested in seeing what all this was really about. And so, but when I did give them my contact information and the family called me, I later found out that the 3 children were actually taken from the mother and the grandmother who were living in the house then. And so they definitely wanted to get their children back, and they had to kind of, get this kind of settled in some way. So, and so I said, well, it's a weekend, and so my last Mass is at 5 o'clock on Sunday, so I could come after that. And so I got the address and went over there around 6:30 to 7 o'clock, and then began my investigation there.
Okay, so that was the beginning of your investigation. Did you have to reach out to the bishop and say, hey, bishop, I want to take a look at this, and kind of get pre-clearance to even investigate? I know dioceses take these things very seriously, and especially under the pontificates, of Benedict, but John Paul II, we had a bit more formalization of the exorcism process, it seemed.
Yeah, I think I was just going to, first of all, get all the information. So I wanted to hear their story, what's going on, and see if I would, first of all, witness anything. And then, and if I needed to perform the ritual, then I would have needed the permission. So I was kind of going to just write up a report if need be, if I need to get information. If it was kind of not really to be the case, then I wouldn't bother anyone with it.
Sure. So, I mean, how do you prepare for going to investigate a call like this, of this nature? We had a little boy just glide up backwards to the ceiling and flip over in front of, reputable medical personnel. I mean, if I heard that, I'd probably go hide under a table somewhere. But what do you do to prepare to even go out to the scene of something like that?
Yeah, I pretty much wanted to see what the source of all this would be. So that was kind of my main thing. What would cause all this to happen, and probably get like a history of where did this all start at, and try to figure all that out.
Sure.
So I was just kind of going into mine, being a canon lawyer, just to do an investigation, I guess.
Of course, yeah. Strap on the proton pack like on Ghostbusters and get out there. Okay, so when you got to the hospital, you did a first interview. Was it there?
No, actually, I went to the house itself.
You went to the house
where they were. They actually weren't staying there for a little bit of time because when they left the house for good, they went to her brothers and stayed with them. And it would be there that eventually the kids were missing school. And so it was kind of around vacation time, Easter and time and such. But after that, they didn't come back to school. So they were reported to the Child Protective Services that they're not in school for this week. And so it was later in the week, I think it was on a Thursday, when the police kind of came over and wanted to do a wellness check and take them to a doctor to examine. And that's where the one boy got thrown to the wall and the other one passed out. They were fighting with each other and such. They both, they couldn't revive them. And so that's when they called the ambulances to take them to Methodist Hospital.
They actually took them to the hospital in ambulances. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Two separate ones, yeah.
See, and this is one of the things we want to do today is kind of fill in the cracks from the reporting on this, because you have a very skeptical, secular media that kind of was forced into covering this by the sensational nature and the well-documented nature of these events. But a lot of this isn't out there if you read the mainstream media reports. Okay. So although I read basically everything I could find before the interview here, a lot of this is missing. A lot of this is going to be new to me, including that. So these boys they were having a hard time reviving them, and they had to bring them to the hospital in ambulance?
Yeah.
Wow. Did the police officers see any of the boys experiencing preternatural events, getting thrown into the wall?
No police officers saw anything. So that happened the next day. So this was Thursday. They kept them overnight. They were kind of fighting with each other, so they had them in two separate rooms in the emergency room. So and the girl was also there too, but she wasn't really being affected that much. So she was mainly with her mother and grandmother. And one would be in one room, and the other would be in the other room, and they kind of separated because they would, cuss at each other and, say they're going to kill each other and all that. And the real young one, who was 7 years old, he's the one that they actually locked up in a child protective mental institution in the area. And so he was, trying to choke his brother, and it took 5 guys to keep him on the bed, because he was super wild. But the other one, the 9-year-old, was the one that ended up walking on the wall backwards. And so most of the people were actually with this other boy. So it was mainly the grandmother with a child protective service agent, a nurse in the emergency room area, and also a psychiatrist, doctor, who was also there when the boy started to growl and his eyes kind of became white, and then she was backing him up, trying to get him back. And that's when he started walking up the wall backwards, flipped over her head, and then sat down in the chair, and then kind of turned toward the people, watching in amazement with this Grinch-like grin, with the eyes still kind of, the whites of his eyes showing. And everyone ran out of the room.
Did they really?
And that's when they got the police. Then they went and got the police, at least the people that would, not the people that would guard the hospital.
Sure, kind of like the orderlies or something like that.
They got orderlies, but there's a policeman that stands like at the emergency room to make sure nothing really happens.
So these were people who were legitimately frightened enough that they had seen something for which there's not a purely natural explanation. They actually left the room and got, police or orderlies or somebody.
And they got the chaplain too, so they also called him in too.
Right. Now, were these people, and I say this because I want to get this out there. I think one thing that's very important with cases of possession, and sometimes when I'm following these cases, as I told you before the interview, one of the things I was interested in possibly dissertating on was the sacramental of exorcism had I gone theology PhD route. I'm always screaming in these cases where it's like, okay, well, we could have gotten this out there. We could have gotten this out there and documented this really well, so you get 1 million or 2 million skeptical people who followed this case, and they have to come to the belief in God. They can't just deny it, because if the devil exists, then God exists. So if the devil's going to, obviously, the evil, foul thug that he is, go after small children and harm them and, kind of attach himself to them and make them do vulgar, foul things, it's like, we're going to expose you then. Like, now neither of us is going to enjoy this. Now we're both dreading this, right? Because now we're going to get this out there and everyone's going to have to believe in you. And that might make some people reorder their lives. So one of the things I want to do with this interview is to fill in the holes and to convince some of the skeptics that this stuff is absolutely real. So, was there any closed caption TV in the hospital? Was there security footage of this? Did you see anything, directly firsthand of this incident of the 9-year-old kind of gliding up the wall like that?
No, that wasn't recorded anywhere. It was a room, so there was privacy issues. There's also children too, so there was nothing that recorded that. But it is. The witnesses outside of the grandmother were very professional, really had not really anything tied to each other, because they're all were there for specific reasons for this case, but none of them worked together or anything. So
yeah, no collusion or anything.
No collusion or anything.
Now, how many witnesses were there?
They were with the mother, grandmother. There was 3 other professional people. So the Child Protective Service, the nurse, and the psychiatrist, doctor.
Okay, and their stories, were they pretty close? Did you talk to all of them individually, or how did you conduct that part of your investigation about this incident in particular?
Yes, there was a report that was made, by Child Protective Services and also by the police. So I was kind of working with the police, so I was able to get those reports. The people working with the hospital weren't really cooperating. I mean, they cooperated in the beginning there, and then all of a sudden, I think they were told by their superiors to, not get involved. So it was hard to get the other 2 involved, though I think one of them did cooperate with the reporter a year later and told, at least showed reports and things, that they had to write down. And the other one actually ended up quitting. She wanted off that case. And so her superior had to come in to do that. And even then, that superior was attacked quite a bit as well. And she still even has problems to this day.
You mean the people who witnessed this event, they themselves came under diabolical attack or persecution of some kind?
Yeah, one had a real difficult time. She actually ended up quitting the service there, and still is trying to process what she saw. She can't believe what she saw. And when they're also interviewed, when they talked to the children, all 3 were trying to talk to the boy there, asking how he did that. And he had no idea he did anything because he doesn't remember any of that. So actually he doesn't know what happened. And he was looking at him strangely like, what are you talking about? And so he just only heard about that. And he said, I didn't do that.
Sure. Okay, so you get this call, and you head out to the family residence where a lot of these manifestations had been leading up to your involvement in the case. Can you take us through it from there? What were the first things you did? How did you conduct the investigation? What kind of things did you look at around the house? What kinds of questions did you ask the family?
Okay, so the first thing I did was just to bless the house. And I just used the normal house blessing, and so I went around mainly with holy water to each room and just see if there was any manifestation of anything. But it was pretty quiet, and so nothing really happened. So after that, I just sat down with the mother and the grandmother, to Latoya and Rosa, to ask them, from the beginning, what was going on. And so, and they pretty much just lived in that house for 6 months. Actually, they were kind of moving away because where she lived before, Latoya had a boyfriend who was stalking her. And so she thought, if she didn't let him know where they were living at, that they could, end that problem.
Sure.
But I think he followed her home from work one time and found out where she did move to, and then, ended up showing up again, though they would never let him in the house or anything. And so, but it was their brother that knew his landlord had this house available, and it was really cheap to rent. Even probably the rent was maybe less than an apartment in Gary. So it was. They go, wow, we get a whole house for maybe $500 a month or something.
That's the old haunted mansion story. It's like, who would put a house up this cheaply? You gotta be a fool. And then it turns out there's zombies in the backyard. Okay, so you get to the house. First of all, was there anything that you could kind of perceive about the house? The infamous cold air that many have attributed to when there is paranormal or preternatural activity taking place at some kind of location in like space-time. Was there anything that you could sense like that, or was it fairly run-of-the-mill until you got into the actual facts of the case and started interviewing the family.
Yeah, so for the first 2 hours of the interview, I was pretty much have them tell all the stories, and I was going to try to get as chronological as I could, and such. And there was pretty much the incident that was going to drive them away from the house. It was when they wouldn't go to that house, they would go into their her brother's house after that and stay with them. And that was when things, they started to try to get a church involved to clear it or help them out. And the church didn't really, they have dealt with this kind of thing. It was a Protestant church. They were Baptists themselves. But when that church came in, the sensitive that kind of goes through the house went into the basement and came rushing out of there and said, "This house is full of demons. I don't want anything to do with this." And I said, "What are you going to do?" And so they said, "Yeah, you could." You could come to our church services, we'll try to deal with it there. But, maybe get some olive oil and make signs of the cross on the windows and the doorways and get some salt and sprinkle it around. And if you get holy water, sprinkle that around and set up a little altar and a Bible, with, in the basement area with a candle there and different things like that. So they kind of did all that. And then it really was aggravated, by all that, to the point they, just had to leave the house.
And this is what they're telling you. They're like making you aware of this background information as
Yes.
you're investigating. You mentioned you sat down with the mother and the grandmother, and they were, I'm assuming, giving you the prior history of the case.
And so I'm trying to find what started it all. And then she kind of mentions, the stalking boyfriend who gave the boys an interesting gift, and first of all, she was mad that he found out where they were living, but he said no, he just wants to give them two gifts. And what is that? He says just $5 each, But what was kind of strange was he didn't want to give anything to the girl, and I asked why. He says, "Oh, the girl's good. She doesn't need need anything to be good, but the boys do." So that just kind of struck me. Okay, that sounds bizarre. So there's something there. So when I started to ask about, okay, what about the boyfriend, and try to get deeper into that story, that's when things started to happen to interrupt. So the first thing was the bathroom light started flickering and buzzing, like electronic noise. And so they pointed out, and that's one of the things, that would happen in the house. So
this had happened before. It was just bulbs that were, these are standard bulbs. You looked at them, they just on and off, or electrical interference type noise.
Yeah, so I went to examine it, and once I got into the bathroom, it stopped doing it. So it went back to normal, it started flickering, it just stayed on light. So I went and sat down again and said, okay, let's get back to the boyfriend. And then it started flickering again, so it looked like it's listening, it's reacting. And so I went back again, and it did the same thing. And so I then was walking back, I said, I guess it's scared of me. And then it started flickering. When I said that, it started flickering, but this time it stayed flickering. So I went and saw that it was, flickering, and then I went and got my crucifix and even put it on it. So it was kind of being defiant. Now this time, and then...
What happened when you put the crucifix on it?
Even when I put the crucifix on it, it just kept on flickering and buzzing. And then I kind of sat down, I said, oh, okay, so I guess it's being defiant, but we'll move on. Then it kind of stopped doing that.
Were you scared?
No, I kind of intrigued because I'm trying to figure, is this electrical problem? But it's like reacting. So it's not like, why is it stopping? And it seems like it's reacting to what I'm doing and such. So it would do it, So I was just, writing that down, kind of intrigued with that. then they started to point to another thing that commonly happens, and that was they had Venetian blinds at all the windows. And so the rods that you'd turn to close them was waving back and forth. And then they pointed at that. And so that was one in the kitchen. So I then went
Was it
over,
like a violent wave, or I mean,
no,
could
about
it have
I would
just
say
been
a
a
quarter of
draft?
an inch. I would say, it was you could see it going back and forth.
Yeah.
So I was trying to say, what's causing it to waver like that?
Sure.
'Cause usually, and so when I got close, then all of a sudden, they also had 3 cords that open it, fully, and then they had the tags at the end of the cords, which they didn't take off. And then they were at the bottom there, and then all of a sudden the furnace kicked on, and so the vent, was spewing up the air, and so those were fluttering. So I was thinking, oh, okay, so that might be what's causing the thing to waver. But then I saw, that, okay, the next window, the same thing was happening. And they seemed to kind of go in motion, together. And then the next one and the next one. So I was kind of looking, but there was no vent underneath those. The vent was by that window and in the middle of the house where there's no windows. So and then also when the furnace did kick off, the tags stopped fluttering, but the rods kept on going. And so I went to window and just, seeing, well, they're all kind of going together. And then I got to her room, and then I looked at the blinds, and there looked like something was dripping off the blinds. So, and I called her, well, what's this here? I don't remember seeing this when I blessed the house. And she goes, oh, I made a big, huge sign of the cross with the oil, the olive oil that they asked me to get, and I put 2 big crosses on the, by my bed, on the blinds. So one of them looked like the horizontal part of that one cross, and it was kind of dripping and such, and it felt like oil. So I did feel it, and it had an oily feel to it and such. So I then wrote that all down, and then.
So do you think that was just the olive oil then that they had?
So it looked like it, yeah, but it was dry. They said it. They put that on like a month and a half before. Sure. So they said we put it on. It was wet, and then it eventually just dried up. But there it was manifesting. So it was kind of becoming drip, but not the other part, not the horizontal part. But it'd be at other times that the horizontal part of the cross, especially where the hands would be, also would kind of start dripping as well. And that's when the later on, when we had the officers come by, and they also saw that there was a hole, dirt in the basement. Sure. Underneath the steps, that they started digging. And when they started digging, then we saw crosses that were above the steps manifesting the oil and was dripping on the stairs, and one was in a cupboard, which the social worker who was in charge put her pinky on, and it turned white, her pinky. And then they went into the bedroom where, I said the bedroom, Latoya's bedroom, and then they saw actually the oil dripping. But I would say it would be more from the horizontal part of the what would have been the cross she made with where the hands would have been.
So this wouldn't have been just, oil that was residual from when they had blessed the house or put the cross sign there.
I think it is, because they made signs of the crosses, and wherever she made those signs of the crosses, they were kind of manifesting when we were digging, later on that week.
But wouldn't it have been dry at this point?
Oh, it was dry. Yeah, it wasn't there. Yeah.
So you're seeing this as as evidence then of diabolical involvement, or at least preternatural involvement.
It seemed like something. It somehow was able to manifest that dried up oil.
Sure.
Somehow. That's what we
beyond the laws of chemistry or physics.
Yeah. So actually, when the officers were there, they were kind of trying to. I think they did take a sample. They had a Q-tip, and they took a sample of it, and it was just regular oil. So they did
take a sample.
but they couldn't find where that came from. Yeah, so they were looking up in the outside. They were going outside, flashlights. They couldn't find the source of that. So
interesting. It's bizarre stuff. What happened next in your investigation that first night?
Okay, so I wrote all that down, and then every time I would try, I knew I was trying to interrupt. There's something with this boyfriend, so I was going to not let it stop me, get me sidetracked. But I wanted to record these things, and then, so the next thing, it's okay, let's get back to the boyfriend. Then all of a sudden, she points down, and there's like the famous footprints that would manifest. That they were kind of watery, and I looked at, oh, there's footprints around her, and then I wasn't sure. Well, I came from outside, but I don't think I stepped in a puddle. I went to the bathroom. I went to the kitchen, so they weren't. I was trying to rule out their mind, because I was walking around and I stepped in a puddle somewhere, but I don't, and they weren't, I could smear them with my shoe, so I could see that they were wet, and it looked like water, but they were just around her, and they weren't going anywhere else. Then they just appeared, and I don't remember them, being there before.
Did they match your shoe tread?
No, I was trying to rule out that there might, but I don't remember stepping in that much water. But they were just around her.
Sure.
And I really wasn't walking around her, that much. It was just when she pointed down, and I was seeing footprints. And then I did, move my shoe, and they were wet, so it wasn't like, someone stepped in paint or something, or varnish or whatever, and they just left there, and I never noticed them before.
Sure.
So they just they were wet, and then I go, oh, okay. So I kind of recorded all that and couldn't figure out where they came from, and then so I said, okay, back to the boyfriend. Then all of a sudden she goes, oh, I'm hot. No, I'm cold. I'm cold. And she went in to get a blanket, and so she wrapped it around her. She was shivering and such. And then all of a sudden she, and then, okay, then what about the boyfriend? Then all of a sudden she throws the blanket off and says, I'm burning up, and so I make a note of that, and I go, okay. Yeah, I know it's trying to stop me, but we need to, get to the boyfriend. And then all of a sudden she's like, oh, I got a terrible headache, and I said, okay, I think we're not going to get it here. And I looked at my clock. It was about 10:30 at night, and I said, okay, what we'll do is continue this interview on the phone. So, and they didn't want to stay, in the house much longer. So she was kind of getting in pain and such. So I said, okay, well, give me a call. And so the next morning I got a call from them, and they went back to her brothers, and they were staying in the bedroom. And all of a sudden, in the middle of the night, Rosa noticed that her feet were, away from the blankets.
And Rosa's the grandmother.
The grandmother, and so she kind of kicked the blankets over and the bedspread and all that over her feet because it's kind of cold. And then when she did that, all of a sudden she saw the blankets over, Latoya's feet also just flipped up over from her feet, and Latoya kind of did the same thing. And so I was kind of thinking, well, okay, there seems to be something with feet here. And so I just asked her, is there anything that, with feet? And she says, oh, that reminds me, before I broke up with my boyfriend, I was kind of getting mad at the family because I just got a pair of Air Jordans for female. And all of a sudden they were missing. And she said, she was, blaming the kids. Who took my shoes? They're brand new. They're expensive.
Sure, it's like $300 shoes. You don't find those shoes.
And he said, no, we didn't touch your shoes. And then she went to her mom, and she said, oh, no, what do I do with sneakers? You know? So that was never answered.
Grandma's hitting the courts at night.
And then she also noticed that she wanted to get a picture of the family for the living room, and there was one with the whole family in it. And she was looking through all her pictures, and she couldn't find them. And then all of a sudden, she noticed pictures of her children were also missing, and pictures of her and Rosa and such. So, or maybe of her. Maybe not Rosa, but and then she says, "Who took these pictures? I want to, put it up in our, living room. Get a nice big one." And they said, "No, we didn't touch the pictures." And he said, "Things are missing here, and this has to stop. You're stealing things. You're lying to me, and everything." So it was kind of bothering her, but she kind of forgot all about that till she was thinking, that was just before he left, and that's kind of. Left her and started stalking, when also just what really made her leave was one time she got a call on her phone, and she answered and says, "What are you doing with my husband?" And she goes, who are you? He says, "I'm such and such as, husband." And he said, "Oh, he never told me he's married."
So the mother got a call.
No, the mother, Latoya.
From another female. Who said, "What are you doing
with my husband?"
Right.
Yeah. And then she said, "Oh, okay, I didn't know he's married. I don't want anything to do with that. Now you could have him." And that explains a lot of things. Says he's lying to me. He's showing up and not showing up, and so it's kind of. I thought he was living a double life or something. You see him, and then he won't show up and such. So he's kind of your problem then. And she remembers her saying, "You're going to regret ever messing with my husband," So then he goes, "Don't worry. I'm not. He's yours. I don't want a married man." So that's when he was always kind of coming around her, trying to beg her, and that's when they decided to move. She didn't want anything to do with him, so she thought that would get him away.
Sure. So then I guess the puzzle pieces in your mind are kind of fitting together, because in an exorcism or in a case of demonic possession, usually this is not just happening to random people off the street. It's usually there's some avenue opened up in somebody's life that lets the diabolical in, like a hex, like living in serious mortal sin for a significant period of time, things of that nature. It's not normally just like, you're walking along and then you're diabolically possessed. So you, as, canon lawyer, you're analytical, you're probably looking for an avenue?
Yeah.
Okay. And so
that was the first thing, okay? The second thing seems to be a separate issue with the house itself, and that was when one of the policemen, now I didn't notice it when I went through the house, that first time. And then, the policemen were in contact with me because they asked me what my experience was, and I told them all about what I kind of found out. And they mentioned, "What do you think about the underneath the stairs, that dirt there?" I said, "Oh, I didn't see that. I didn't look underneath the stairs." He said, I said, "That's a concrete floor in the basement there. I don't." And he said, "No, but underneath the stairs, there's a dirt." And I go, "Oh, okay. Well, there's something. That's interesting." So the policeman wanted to, come back with me and see what that was all about.
So how did they get involved? How did generally you're not like 911 help, there's a demon in my house. How did the police come to be involved in the case?
Well, that was actually from the hospital, and the Child Protective Services too. We're calling in the police as well to do a wellness check on the house. And so that's when they went in that Wednesday after I went in. And that's when I got in communication with them, because they heard that I was in the house on the Sunday, and they went through it on a Wednesday. And then they mentioned, seeing the dirt underneath the stairs. And I said, "Oh, yeah, I'd like to, there's something about that. Yeah, we need to, there's something, who knows what that is." And they also thought, yeah, someone could be buried there, or something's buried there, or whatever. Something's, and they probably they were going to, okay, we need to get an investigation on that. But we would like you to be there just in case, in case it's something else.
So I mean, this is interesting to me because I'm naturally a skeptical guy, and I think everybody should be skeptical. There's a lot of ruses out there. There are a lot of people crying wolf when it comes to supernatural and preternatural events. I think it's healthy for everybody to have skepticism. But this is where it starts to be like a chink in the armor, and it's like, okay, there is something to it in this case, because it's abnormal for police departments to be acting as paranormal investigators. You don't have in the Gary, Indiana Police Department, oh, we got the Ghostbusters division or whatever. We're going to go investigate this haunted house. So obviously they're somewhat convinced, the officers themselves, right?
But actually, there was in Lake County, Indiana, there was the chief of police of Hammond. Before he became chief of police, he happened to be the officer on scene. There's an area called Wolf Lake, and they discovered looked like a cult activity going on there, and so it looked like animal sacrifices or something was happening there. So he's became kind of the expert in the area for that. And then when he became chief of police in Hammond, he would hand that on to the lieutenant from the Lake County Sheriff's Department to handle all that. So that's why that guy got involved. And then the Captain Austin of the Gary Police Department was just, that was his jurisdiction to be in Gary. So you had these three kind of involved and consulting with each other. But when they went that Wednesday, they all came with electronic devices. And they all had different things happen to their electronic device, at least one of them. So one had, was going to videotape the whole thing, and when he went to turn it on, it was drained. He said, "I just put fresh batteries in here. It's gone. It's dead." And then the Gary captain, when he left there, all of a sudden his radio went going through the static, like going through the different stations, and then said, "You, what are you doing? You in there?" or something like that. He heard this guttural voice.
Heard a guttural voice
going through the static, saying something like, "You, what do you do? You there? What?" I'm not exactly sure what exactly it said, but it was, he said something, yelled at him to get away, and
from the house
to get away from the house. So and then the lieutenant was able to use his he had a voice recorder. And he was just kind of narrating the things, since they couldn't record it on. Oh, actually, and I think they ended up recording it on a phone. So they did. He was going to use a video camera, but they were able to record things on the phone, and then he remembers kind of looking underneath the stairs, and he was taking pictures. And he goes, "Oh, man, it looks like there's an altar here, or it looks like there's candles here," and things. They say, "Oh, man, the fire department's not going to like this," and such. And then as he was saying that, all of a sudden on his recording, it says, "Hey." And then when he took the picture, when it said, "Hey," he saw two look like orbs, a green orb and a white orb. And they look like heads. So underneath the stairs looking
Did
at
you
him.
see that picture?
So, he showed me that picture. He also showed me the recording, where it said, "Hey."
Do you have that picture in your possession? Is there some way you can, because we can pull it up on screen.
Oh, yeah, I don't know I think I have it in my possession, but I don't think it ever got released by them.
Is that something you'd be willing to let us show the audience?
Yeah, I have to see if I still have it, because I know he did give me a copy, or at least let me see it. So I did see it. I have to see if I have it or if he wanted it back.
Sure.
So
Producer will be following up.
Oh, okay. I'll have to see if I still have that. Okay.
Sure. Okay, so previously, you were talking about kind of the mechanism by which diabolical influence could have come into this family's life. And I guess here's a fork in the road. Number one, we're talking about what I'm reading into what you're saying as possibly a hex, either by a vindictive spurned wife or by perhaps the spurned boyfriend himself.
Or the boyfriend trying to create some sort of infatuation.
Sure.
Yeah, thing.
Okay, so there's that. And I've read Father Gabriel Amorth's first book. He does talk about like these hexes. People will put like 4 love hexes or infatuation hexes. That's something that's broached there. So that seems plausible enough. But the other thing is the house itself, and you're talking about the police going into this basement in this patch of dirt, seeing if they could possibly excavate that and look into that. Let's follow up on these two mechanisms here. Number one, did you ever confirm that there was some hex at play either from the boyfriend or his spurned wife? And then number two, did anything turn up in the basement? Are we talking about kind of parallel evolution here of these causes for
like
diabolical?
A perfect storm.
Yeah, exactly. Like a house that is this nexus of diabolical activity, and then also perhaps a hex that went along with this failed relationship. Can you speak to those two things? Yeah.
Now, she didn't want me to deal with the boyfriend, so she did give me his name. And actually, when Zach Bagans was doing the documentary, I did give him the name, and so he did kind of try to look him up and such, but he had a policeman go with him, but he wanted nothing to do with that. So he never really would cooperate, and that's actually the name and everything is blocked out on the thing that you could get on the internet, but the policemen were going to, first of all, they wanted to bring in a cadaver dog to go see if it would react to anything. So they first want to know if there's a body or something buried underneath there. So they brought the dog through, and it didn't seem to react to anything. So they brought him to the whole house, and so he didn't really react. So then they did, start digging. And they're doing a lot of, videotaping and documenting, things, whatever they may find there. And so when they started to dig, they got about 2 feet deep, and that's when they kind of pulled up, I think the first thing was a fingernail. And they go, ooh, wow, that's, why would a fingernail be too? And they were trying to figure, is that a real fingernail? Or it seemed to be painted pink.
Like fake ladies.
Or it could be a fake one,
nail.
paste on nail. So they were trying to figure that out, and it looked like a paste on. But and then the next thing they found was some woman's undergarment, but it was very cottony, so it seemed a little bit old, pre-polyester era and such. So maybe Depression era. Now the house, they did some history on the house. So it was built in 1926. And by a newlywed couple who lived there, and were the only couple ever to live there in their family till they both passed away. And then it was sold after that, but it was always just rented out after that point. And so, and so it did look like, okay, it was some sort of undergarment. And we weren't sure if it's a slip or panties or something. So it was kind of torn, and it was hard to it was very dirty, sandy, and such. But it was cottony. So, and then they found this little lid-like thing. It was a red lid. It was oval, but it was bent in half. Yeah, and so they were kind of okay. They were looking for what this contained. And they couldn't find any container or anything for that, and so and then they got about 2.5 feet deep, and then they found this. First of all, this we found a sock, like a boy's sock, and so they picked that thing up, and now when they looked at it, they saw that it didn't have the foot part; it had like the ankle part. And it looked like it was cut. So they thought the foot part was cut off of it for some reason. But later, when Zach Bagans discovered, that, because they left all that there, and he went and tried to dig it up, later on after when he was doing his thing, and he actually found that the foot part was tucked underneath the ankle part. So actually, what looked to be the cut part of it, cutting off the foot, actually was the top part that was becoming frayed.
Well, I mean, do you think any of this stuff is remarkable at all? Or when
yeah.
I read the reports on the kind of basement excavation, obviously the equipment malfunctions and some of what was manifesting in these photos, that was the most interesting part to me. But at least with an untrained eye, they found a sock, a lady's nail. It didn't sound like a big deal to me. Are you thinking those things were used in?
Well, there was three things. Okay, so there was three things that, that seemed to maybe go around with a lady. Now, the other thing is when the kids were mentioned with this old lady, they saw her twice in their backyard.
The children saw a lady?
The children, when they came home from school twice, they saw her, and she was in a white dress, and, and they just, walked to the backyard and say, hey, what are you doing? And she looked at them and had red eyes. They ran into the house to get their mom or grandmother to, say there's a lady with red eyes, but they couldn't.
That's not your average everyday old lady. They generally don't have red eyes. Yeah. Okay, so did you know this from talking to the children?
So they did see her twice. And then the other thing is with the boy, was the youngest was always talking with a boy in the closet.
Right.
And so, and he was always saying what it's like to die, or you want to know what it's like to get killed, or things like that.
How do you know this, Father? Did you talk to the boy himself? Did he tell you this? Is it from a hospital psychiatrist, or how did you become privy to what the boys saw?
Yeah. The whole time we were dealing with the case, the kids were locked away. So one was in a mental institution for children. The other two were in a foster care facility run by Carmelite nuns. And so that whole time, and she was mainly going through this to get her children back.
Sure.
So I was able to take care of the whole thing without involving the children. And then once it was all kind of taken care of, then the courts were able to give the children back.
Then how do you know what it is that the boys saw?
Yeah, so it would be just what the mother and grandmother reported to me.
Okay.
In my interview with them, so.
Sure, so how does an old lady and a boy in the closet, how do those things relate to what you found in the basement, and how do they relate to a possible maybe hex placed on the shoes by boyfriend or boyfriend's wife?
Yeah, so I would say those are two separate things that have nothing to do with each other, but they're just a perfect storm for the demonic to, coincide with, from two different sources, but they could work in tandem, work together. And so the second thing was we saw this very heavy bar. It weighed about 10 pounds. It was all corroded, and it had a little hook on the top, a little hole in the top. So it looked like you could put a rope or we weren't sure if it was from a grandfather's clock, but it looked more like, and he said, well, I think this is when in these olden times you used to have drapery cords and you just had a weight at the bottom and you could, just open the drapes, with the cord and keep it intact. And so that was found. So we were kind of thinking, well, maybe that's how the boy died. So he had the sock, so either it knocked him on the head or it wrapped around his neck and choked him or something.
Sure, so you're speculating that perhaps the boy was buried in this house?
Yeah, so we weren't sure of that, and then we were also going to try to find, we couldn't find any information on if they had any children or if any died or anything. So, we did a little bit of research, but we never came up with, an actual proof, but we didn't know exactly when this would have occurred because everything looked like it's more in the 30s or 40s
Sure.
that this occurred. And then, the third thing we found was, actually we thought it was a bone. Yeah, so when we first saw this long, kind of yellowish thing here, and, so then they were really, brushing and taking pictures
Sure.
and video and thing. And then he finally tapped it and it was plastic and then he pulled it up. And what it was kind of these old time fancy shoe horns that was broken in half down the lengthwise. So it's kind of, it seemed like something as the thing was bent in half. This thing also seemed to, so that seemed to be something with a ritual, so it must have been the boys, shoehorn or something too. So,
Sure.
So we couldn't really,
Sure, it's
but it
some
was three,
speculation at that
yeah,
point.
we're trying to speculate, but we could never get an actual
Sure.
person attached to that.
When did you decide then you'd had enough, you got enough evidence together, you're going to approach the bishop, say, I think there's something here. Tell us about that.
Okay. So actually, I was waiting for the police to finally do that. So they did have to go through channels and get the dog and that. So there was a couple of weeks later. So it was about the middle of May when we went, and it was on a Wednesday, I remember. And so after that, I felt, and also that's also when it started dripping for them too. So they also, were taking pictures and recording the dripping on the blinds and everywhere as well, taking pictures of the person's hand.
The police have a picture of the finger that turned white?
White, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the police, these are all, were these crazy Christian police officers? Or were these, yeah, that's...
No, they became more and more, because of the things that were happening, they were becoming more and more convinced, they wanted me around a lot.
Sure, I'm just trying to rule out for the diehard skeptics out there that, these are not like the Bible grasping police officers.
No one wanted to touch those items. They said, we don't want, we're not going to use this. Yeah, because once we got to that third item, and so it seems like 2 sets of 3 at 2 feet, 2.5 feet. So they went deeper. And when we got to about the 3 to maybe 4 foot level, all of a sudden we could see that the sand was pristine. So it wasn't,
disturbed
or anything. So we knew the digging stopped, about the 3 foot level. So there was no more digging.
So that's something you took to the bishop then. You said the police are kind of convinced there's something
so they
at
knew
work
there
here?
was nothing buried there that was out of the ordinary. They didn't want any, there was no crime or anything, and they didn't want to take any of that. They weren't going to want to touch it. And so no one really wanted to touch it, so we weren't quite sure what to do with that. So, and I thought they did throw it back into the hole and just buried it over, and and so I was, So I wasn't sure, what could be done anyway with all that. So, okay. So now I could write my report, and so I did feel I had enough to go on it because that was kind of holding me up. I wanted to, if it's a crime scene or something, or something else.
Sure.
I didn't want to get involved in that part of it, and so we did all that, and I wrote and I made an appointment with the bishop, and so he heard the whole story and everything, and says, okay, I know that Father. Who was kind of the he knew of one of the exorcists in Indianapolis, and so he was going to have him contact him, and also have me also contact the exorcist in Chicago, because and see if they will be willing to, because he didn't have anyone he could send this case to.
Sure.
So, and I said I would do it, but I would need a ritual. He says, well, we don't have any of that. We don't have anything. So
They didn't train you on that in seminary?
No.
That's not part of the
So,
the NAC's curriculum.
Yes. And actually, when I talked to the other exorcists at that time, they were redoing Pope Benedict got a lot of complaints about the new rite. And everyone was saying it's not effective. There's something wrong with it, you know. And so he was examining it, and so in the meantime, he put everything on the internet. You could use the old rite in English, you know, the vernacular, or Latin, or the new rite in Latin or in the vernacular.
Sure.
So it was all just available because he wasn't. So there was nothing being printed, and so. They kind of just told me, go to the internet, you could get it, anyone could get it, and just print it out and do it myself, you know. And there was instructions on that as well. So I kind of just read up on the instructions and such. And
go to the family and like, I'll do the exorcism. I just need to Google it first.
Yeah. So I'm kind of doing it on the fly there. And then they, you know, even the family did move on to Indianapolis. And so, you know, so Father, the exorcist in Indianapolis, could have taken the case over, but when they contacted him, you know, I said, you know, he said, well, okay, I have to, you know, I'm going to begin from scratch, you know.
Yeah.
So, and they said, no, we've been working on this for 6 weeks, and I finally, you know, got it to the bishop, and you know, I don't want to start all over. Plus, everything's over there. You know, you're here. You know, 2.5 hours away. So I don't want to start all over. I want to get my children back. And so, so she said, so I said, well, if you're willing to come up to my church, you know, because she's now living in Indy. That was also another thing we tried. We thought, okay, it was after that, you know, it was around Mother's Day where she moved into Indianapolis, and she thought she could, you know, we could probably solve the problem there. So she actually came up from Indianapolis when they did the digging, you know. So, and so she said, no, I'll come up on, you know, on the weekend. When I only work during the week, so I'll come up, and we could do it, you know, Friday night or something. I could head back, and you know, if that would be okay. And then when I talked to the other two exorcists, they kind of just said, yeah, maybe what you could do is, since you have the, you know, use one of the rites you like. You could use whatever you want. Do it once, and if it takes care of the problem, then you know you don't have to bother the bishop. So and that's called a minor exorcism. So you could do that. And so okay, so I did do that, but they gave me one warning: if it's not getting rid of the demon. In other words, it's agitating the demon, and you know, but it's not getting rid of it. Oh, that was the other thing I did one time when I was also investigating. The last thing I did was put the crucifix on Latoya's head, and she began convulsing, and then I would take it off, and she would stop convulsing.
Is it like
that 3 times? Yeah, and she would do that.
Was it a noticeable convulsion?
Oh yeah,
is it something that could have been like faked for? You know, anyone who's skeptical of this, again, I'm thinking.
But that was the last thing I did, you know. So I did do that, and then I was just going to see if, you know, I said, actually, with that, we were thinking something's wrong with the children. We didn't think, because I was actually saying, I think it's attached to you, you know. And
how did you know that?
Because she was convulsing.
Why did you put the crucifix on her in the first place?
And I said, could I just put the crucifix, you know, okay. So I did, and she began convulsing, I took it off.
Did you have an inkling at all that it could be attached to the mother?
No, I didn't even, I was just going to just rule her out, you know, because she's never mentioned any outside of, because I didn't know about the shoes and all that yet, you know, so, because that was, I was always trying to figure out what's with the boyfriend. You know?
Right.
So, and then I said, could I do, you know, to Rosa, would you mind if I do the same thing? She said, go ahead. But she didn't react. So she didn't react, but you know, Latoya did.
So that makes sense, though, with the missing shoes, which were the mother's item, and the vow of vengeance by perhaps the wife against the mother.
Against her, yeah.
It makes sense that she would be kind of the locust, the person targeted, the person chosen.
And then we would kind of find out that it would always jump. It would never really be in one person, you know, it would just jump from one person to another, you know, so.
Are there other cases of that? I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know if you've followed much of Gabriel Amorth's work, but I feel like he has broached that
okay.
topically before,
Okay.
but I don't know if this is a well-known phenomenon or if it's something that is kind of more sui generis.
Yeah. I just was trying to find out, was there ever anything happening to anyone at the same time? And they never had an example. It would affect one, but it could, like one thing the kids would do is all of a sudden one kid would say like this demonic rhyme, and then kind of like closes his or her eyes and falls asleep. And then the next kid would pick it up and rhyme it with something else, and then kind of fall asleep. And then the third one would, kind of complete it and then fall asleep. But when they would ask them about it, they had no idea. They said, where'd you get that at? What? The kids had no recollection of even knowing what they're saying.
Do you remember? Do you know what the words were?
No, they just remembered it kind of rhymed. It was, it's kind of it was kind of a childlike thing, but it had a dark tone to
Sure,
it. So
sure.
They knew, because they were asking, where'd you get that at school? Then the kids had no. So it was hard to,
Those Victorian nursery rhymes can be pretty dark.
Yeah, it was something kind of like, but it wasn't like anything they could, research on or something.
Sure.
So we could never get that. But just remember them doing that, and that would happen quite often. Like the night they did leave the house was the girl all of a sudden it was a family get together. And with the whole family, big, huge thing around early March. And she got pulled off the couch and fell on the ground. And they go, what are you doing? And it says, someone pulled me off the couch. No one pulled you off the couch. And then all of a sudden she started getting sick, oh, I got stomach ache. And then she started, oh, my head. And so they then put her to bed. And and then Rosa went to go and get a washcloth, to put on her head and to soak it down. And then all of a sudden the other boy goes flying into the freezer, which was actually in the living room. The kitchen was pretty small, so there was no room for this open up freezer. And so that was in the living room right by the door. And so he went banging into the thing. He says, what are you doing? She was, in the kitchen and turned around and he says, someone threw me into the freezer. So, who did that? And then he started to get, stomach ache. Oh, no, I feel sick. And then he started to get, headache too. So they then went to put him to bed. And as they were doing that, the third boy comes flying out of the wet bathroom. And you go, what are you doing? And he says, someone just threw me out of the bathroom. And then he went through the same thing. So by that time, the family said, we're getting out of here.
Did anybody else witness that? Was anyone else present except for the family?
No, the whole family saw all that. Yeah, so,
sure, but it was just that family.
But it was only family. That was all.
Well, I know there was an incident with the girl levitating.
Now, the girl was the cousin who, she said, she was the only one that wanted to stay. He says, could I stay with the girl, my cousin, for the night, And he said, oh, okay, if you want to, So that's when, about, say, in the middle of the night, she started screaming. And Latoya and Rosa came into the bedroom and flipped on the lights, and the girl, the daughter, plopped on the bed. So it looked like she fell a couple feet, when they turned on the lights. And the girl said she was floating, and that's why I screamed. And she was floating. She didn't wake up.
The cousin, was it?
No, the cousin saw this.
The cousin is the one who witnessed it and screamed.
Saw her, but it was dark, but, she saw and screamed, come on, help me, and so they came rushing in. When they turned on the light, she fell to the bed, and it looked like she fell a couple.
The 12-year-old girl.
The 12-year-old girl. And then the girl woke up and says, what are you doing? What happened? And says, I don't know. I didn't do it, so she didn't remember anything. But the cousin said, you were floating. I was what? But she woke up when she plopped on the bed.
Sure.
The lights went on. So, but she was, I guess, asleep, all through that.
So you heard this from the
And that's
mother,
what the mother
and the grandmother.
described, and the mother and the grandmother described.
Was it your sense that they were being honest with you?
Oh, yeah.
Because that's a lot to tell someone. If I had told you, I saw someone levitating the other day, like
they didn't see it, they just saw it fall, but they saw it, when the light went on, it looked like she fell on the bed. So,
sure.
So that's all they saw. But they said, talking to the cousin, she said, no, she was floating. I woke up, saw her floating, and screamed. But she didn't wake up. They got in. They came from their bedroom and went into hers, and that's when they saw that, and that's when she woke up. But she has no recollection of that.
Okay, so you touch this crucifix to the mother's forehead. She convulses, and then you realize you need to perform an exorcism
on her. Yeah. So actually, because I wasn't quite sure what to do because. I did that night, so I did know. Okay, we at least could do an exorcism on you, and maybe that will take care of the children as well. We don't know if the children are released and they need help. We could continue on with them with your permission and such. So that was kind of the plan, but she did want so she was agreeable to have it done on her, and she. Even though she never mentioned that, she did mention that she was sick with 3 different kidney ailments that January. She was kind of in and out of the emergency rooms or hospitals with bleeding in her kidneys or pain in her kidneys or different things, and they couldn't find anything. And that's also the kids were going to school with bloody lips and bloody noses or whatever. It would appear at school or whatever. That's where our Child Protective Services are also getting concerned that something's happening.
Abuse or something.
Abuse
of the more natural.
And they were kind of checking all that out. And then when they weren't showing up at school, that's when they actually, intervened. So I think before they were just kind of through the school, investigating things. But then with that, they intervened with the police to take her to the doctor, take the family to the doctor, evaluate the whole thing. And that's that Thursday before the Friday that, the boy walked up the wall, that, the emergency room.
Sure, at the hospital. Did they find any abuse? I think.
No, they could never find the source. I mean, there would be bloody noses, but the school nurse couldn't find anything. I mean, no reason for that. It would eventually stop. Or if the lips were bleeding, they wipe it off. But there's no cuts or anything, or the gums are bleeding, and they look and then see no cuts or anything. So these things were happening. Blood was appearing. They couldn't find why this was happening. So.
Sure. So what happened then after the mother convulsed? Tell me about the exorcism that you performed.
Okay, so we did the minor exorcism, and so I did it. That's when I would do it, and I was kind of warned, you can't keep on doing it if it's not getting, either it's going to get more and more worse, and then eventually it will leave, just leave, or it will weaken and then leave, it'll stop. But if it's continuous, you're not affecting it, and all you're going to do is hurt her muscles, and you could, might affect her heart and things like that. So they told me, so just do it for maybe 20 seconds or something, see if it's getting worse or less. But if it's the same, you could try 3 times. So I did probably try it 3 times, 20 seconds. Stop, and she would stop, and
she would convulse each time.
Each time, and I was just seeing if it's getting worse or less, and it was continuous. So I stopped, and I said, okay, I'll try one more time. So I did it for another maybe 20 seconds, and the same thing, all 3 times. So I kind of, but it was kind of that. Okay, I'm probably going to have to get permission from the bishop to do that. So I then called the bishop up that day. We did it on that Wednesday. And he says, over the phone, okay, I give you permission. You could do it. And so we set it up for that first Friday. That Friday coming up was the first one.
How did you prepare yourself to do your first exorcism?
Yeah, so actually, I was already kind of prepared when I did the minor one. So I was kind of reading through everything and all that. So it was pretty much okay. And, you know, and the police wanted to be involved, and you know, I told them, okay, you can't bring any weapons with you. You know, something could go really bad. So, yeah, so if you could be the restrainers, but don't have any guns or batons or nothing, and you just hold the person down in the chair, So I was kind of instructing them, and they wanted to be part of that, and they asked if we could tape it. They could tape it, they can, and the Child Protective Services want to tape it, so they
taped it.
So they taped it, and the police also had a tape.
Do you have that tape?
No, those are their properties. I think Zach Bagans did buy the police tape of the first two exorcisms. The first exorcism that Friday is the most boring exorcism in history because, when we got to the point to put the crucifix on her forehead, nothing happened.
But I'm sure that shocks you, right? It's like when you bring your car to the mechanic shop and it won't make the noise. What
you're doing, there you go. Yeah, so they're filming. Nothing. I mean, I went through the whole rite, and I said, okay, that's the whole rite, and there was no manifestation. She didn't convulse. She didn't. I think it's gone,
You went through the whole rite, the written word, but isn't there a whole thing where you have to find the identity of the demon?
Yeah, you asked for that. Yeah.
And that's part and parcel of the actual rite.
But there was no reaction, So sometimes if you know the name, so that was kind of that's what led to the second thing. So the first, when we went to, was kind of saying, well, I mean, I think that's it. She says, I don't think it's all God. I could now wear religious objects. I mean, so we gave her a crucifix, and she could put that on. We gave her this big, huge rosary, which was made of Benedictine metals. So it was a rosary of Benedictine metals, and she could touch that and such. It was all blessed and everything. And so, and then we gave that to her. She got in her car. It looked like she put the thing in her purse, but, and then got in her car and drove away. And then as we were, walking past that, we, in the sun, we could see something glimmering. And he said, oh, that's part of that rosary. And here's another piece. And here, so it was torn apart in 5 different pieces, and I go, oh, I don't think this is over with, So we got all the pieces, and we counted up to make sure we got the whole thing. And she was my assistant was going to put it all back together. And so I said, I think we're going to hear something, And so the next morning she called me. He says, I can't find my rosary. I put it in my purse. I looked all over my car. I emptied out my purse. I can't find it. I said, it was in our parking lot, torn into 5 different pieces.
Wow.
And so she says, okay. I says, okay, whatever one that, you could now, you handle religious objects, so you don't have an aversion to that. So whatever that one was causing that is gone. It left before it left before we got to that point. But when we did, nothing else manifested, so, and that's the only reaction I know of is that you did. So, and I don't know what to do to make it to call out its name, because you gotta torment it to force it to give its name. And she goes, oh, that reminds me, I don't have a computer, but my friend did. And when all this was happening, I was going to ask her if I could use your computer to Google how to get rid of demons. So she did that, and she was looking on it, and it had a whole list of demons, this one website, and kind of descriptions of what they do and things. And then she saw, oh, this is what's happening to my children. So she went to look at the name, and the computer went off.
Oh, wow.
And you go, oh, okay. So you press the button to turn it back on and reboot and everything, and then get onto the website and get onto the website and find the web page, and she did it again, and see, where's that at? Here. And she went to look at it again, and it clicked off a second time. And this time her friend says, "You're not putting your demons in my computer. You got to go home now." So she left, and actually the friend would never speak to her again. She had a headache for like 2 weeks and things. So she says,
So either you're getting hot on the demon's trail,
Oh, yeah.
or her friend had an Acer and it was just breaking.
but she said it never did that before. So I said, "Oh, okay. Okay, let me see what I could do." I kind of got an idea, try to duplicate what she did to find that website. So what I'm going to do is the day before you come, what I'm going to do is print out that list so they can't mess around with it. And so when it came to that, I usually have my Thursdays my day off. So that day was a beautiful day, in fact, but it was about 10 o'clock, so I said, okay, before I go on my bike ride, let me get this list of demons. So I did all my things and try to find, what site it is, and I said, oh, here's all the lists, here's the descriptions, but I didn't know which one so I started going to try to print out all the about 10 pages of all this stuff.
Sure.
And it wouldn't let me print,
It wouldn't let you print?
Print it, yeah. I tried, okay, then I'll try a little trick here, or I'll try to do this, so kind of trying all kinds of different things, and I go, oh, okay, well, it's 11 o'clock, I might as well go on my bike ride, and all of a sudden, I just tried one more time, and all of a sudden, shoot, then print it, oh, okay, here we go, one page, and, okay, and it's there, 3, so I got a whole mess of pages of it, and then I turned my computer off, and then went on my bike ride. And it's the strangest bike ride in history. So at first, this never happened. I was going through the neighborhood. It was a beautiful day. But any neighbor, I went past about 3 neighbors, different neighbors. I didn't know them. And one would say, go get their mail, and says, what a beautiful day this is just gorgeous, The other one's watering their lawn. Oh, isn't this just a great day? Oh, okay. And then a third one, is putting the garbage away or bringing out their garbage, and then same thing, So 3, the most happiest, people, and before I could ride through a neighborhood and no one would say anything,
Sure.
So, and here was, everyone was so happy. So I go, oh, I think the angels are happy. I got this thing,
Sure.
So
and clearly you
really
don't live
good.
in Michigan, because everyone's just grumpy here. I'm like, how's it going? People are like, don't talk to me.
and so everyone, I went on a bike path, and it seemed like everyone is saying hi to me, And you might get some people to do it, but not everyone.
Sure.
So anyone that was there, oh, hey, how's it going? Thumbs up, or and I'm just, acknowledging it back, and I'm just seeing, is there someone just going to pass me by and not say anything? I was, conscious of this, and everyone, anyone I passed, they would look up and do that. So I was feeling really good, and then you get to the end of this bike path and you go to the other one, you have to go through this town. And so I pull off in this subdivision, it's just a little sleepy subdivision, and this car comes zooming around the corner and slams on her brakes, and I just pull right out in front of all this. And I go, oh, wow, I gotta be careful, and beeping the horn, what are you coming, 40 miles an hour around a curve in the subdivision here? So, and then all of a sudden, the whole thing changes, and no one says anything, and they're staring at me. If they look up at me, they probably were going to say something, but they're staring at me like, what is riding that bike? I mean, it was like, it was freaking me out, because people are just, with this, perplexed look. Others maybe just weren't, paying any attention. They'll just go by. But there was one time, remember, a family of 4, mom and dad probably in front and 2 kids in the back, and 4 sets of eyes staring at me, and you could kind of see as they went by, they said, you could hear them talking among themselves, like, I'm going away, but you could tell, they're kind of saying, what is that?
Yeah.
So, and I go, oh, wow. And so I get all the way to the end of the path, and I turn around, and I go through the gate, and all of a sudden I'm at the side of the path, thrown off my bike, and I go, what in the world happened? And I was really baffled. And then I saw, my seat is at a 45-degree angle. So I got a loose seat. I'm going to get back about as far away as I could get. And then, so I was going to just, twist it back. And that's locked in, And so I went to the gate and tried to pound the seat. So I go, man, and I said, yeah, I was sitting on the seat. If I hit the pole, yeah, I would have wrapped myself around the pole. Yeah, so there's, I couldn't figure out, this thing grabbed my seat somehow, threw me on the ground, and I go, oh wow, and I go, this thing's pretty strong. It knows how, and I kind of realized, it does not. It's going to try to stop. I know its name, or no, the name's going to be discovered. So. And then I go about 2 miles, and there's this series of S curves in the path. And there's this one guy, he's just going as fast as he can. He has all the gear on, like Lance Armstrong with the helmet, and he's just pedaling as fast as he can. But he's right in my lane, coming around the corner, not looking down at the ground, not looking at me, and about ready to crash into me. And I was ready just to jump off. I didn't want to go, where he should have been. So I was just going to jump off the bike. And then he looks up and gets out of my way. Man, we almost had a head-on collision.
Sure.
And I go, wow. And then I go another 2 miles or so, and there's this, just 2 mothers with their 2 little babies in tow in the back. And so they get to the road, and it's a busy road, and you go through the gate, and you wait there, and the other one waited there. And then I followed in behind them, but there's a ditch here, so I couldn't get in between them, there. Then I couldn't get, I went behind, I couldn't get between them. And then, but on the other end, there was like enough room, but I'm going real slow, and I'm shaking,
Sure.
And I'm going, "Ooh, don't throw me into the baby." I'm just saying to myself, "Don't throw me into the babies," And then the car passes that they were waiting on, and then I drive on past, and then another bike drives on right into the middle of the road, and I could hear them from behind me as I ride away. And they're saying, "I'm sorry," because he had no place to go, So, and it's a kind of a busy street, so you need to get off the road. So, but I don't know how that all rectified, but I
Sure.
remember that, and then I go.
Well, yeah. So you made it back safely, and then you were able from this to kind of intuit that you were close to the name of the demon.
I knew I had the name. Yeah.
How did you proceed at that point?
Yeah. So. There came a time, there was 2 other things, I just maybe to finish up, because one was a mother with her little 4-year-old boy with a plastic wagon, just in the other lane, kind of going my direction, but in the other lane. And I was about ready to zoom past them, when the boy, if it wasn't for the mother grabbing him just before for some reason, he just wanted to dart in front of me.
Sure.
And with his wagon, and she grabbed him before, and so I was able to go around him. But if the mother didn't grab him, it would have, I would have avoided not hitting him, but I would have gone into his wagon, and I go over the place, and whatever happened to him and all that. So that was like a close call. And then the last thing was there was a tunnel. That goes underneath a very busy street, and it was the last day of school. I remember it was June 7th, and there's a kindergarten on one side. There's like a preschool on the kiddie court on the other side. So I don't know which one it was, But I'm going zooming down into, to go fast through the tunnel and, so I could get up on the other side. And as I'm going down to this dark tunnel, I hear, get over to the side. And so as my eyes are adjusting, there's like 15 kids. Luckily, they all go to the wall on the side I was on, so I could go over to the other side and avoid them all. But, but I go, as I go, oh man, that could have been a disaster if the kids were just going everywhere. I mean, I don't know, it's a tunnel, there's nowhere to go. So I go, man, why would you bring kids, all these kids down into a bike tunnel, and, it's a bright sunny day and it's dark and, so.
It's the stuff of horror movies, It seems like the fates are conspiring against you to throw every single thing in your way so that you can't get back home safely. Yeah, that's straight out of The Omen or something.
And I knew I just had to make it home, because if it figured out a way to stop me, that's one of the rules. Don't let it figure out, you can't let it know what's going to stop you. And
really?
So I was thinking about that all the way, so that was halfway from that trip on, for the last 15 miles of that trip, nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing happened. I don't even know if I saw another person. So it was like so whatever it was, I wore it. I mean, it was, but it has boggled my mind ever since that. Wow, it could orchestrate all this kind of stuff.
So how did you get the name of the demon?
And so when I came to the time, she looked through everything. And she went through the page. Okay, here it is. Oh, that's it. Okay, and so I go, oh, okay. So I'll use that name. Okay, and
so she was able to finally settle on it. Her computer, you would print it off.
So it was on the page. Yeah, so she could find it. It couldn't turn it off. Couldn't do anything more.
Right.
But it did a lot up to that point.
Sure, the page didn't burn up in your hand.
No, it was pretty much a done deal. I could read it, and so I went through that. And so when it came to the name, so nothing was happening up to that point where you asked the name. Then I said, is the name such and such? And she began convulsing, and then I just kept on hammering it with the name. And so it just kept going wild and and then finally you could see it was weakening. And
were there any preternatural phenomenon that went along with the exorcism that the police could have gotten on tape? Or?
No, they got that one on tape. So that was the second one they did.
Was there levitation? Was there speaking in unknown languages?
No, it's pretty much the name. I'm using the name a lot, and it was getting worse and worse, and then it got less and less, and then she fell asleep.
But there was nothing that would seem paranormal going on as far as obvious deviations from the laws of the universe, the laws of physics, floating. Levitating?
No, just her convulsing. Yeah, so
just the convulsing.
Convulsing, but it wasn't because it wasn't like the other one. So where she didn't convulse. So it wasn't religious objects, but it was a name. So when it was not so much putting some crucifix on her or something. It was when using that name. So whenever I mentioned the name, now she never would really say anything. She would just kind of convulse more and more.
What was the name?
Yeah, because it's on the out. Yeah, that's one of the rules. You can't.
You don't say it outside of the exorcism.
That, because people will get obsessed with it and try to call it in. It's a nasty one.
So it's like a higher ranking demon.
It's a very high
one.
Yeah. So it's the one. To this day, we have a lot of problems with that one.
Why? Yeah. Why this one in particular? Why is its power at a zenith right now?
Yeah. It seems to be, if you ever see the movie The Demon House, the documentary, it's the thing that kind of, if you would go there without wearing a sacred object, it will attach to you. So if you saw the end of that, where it affected the cameraman, it affected the doctor.
I did not see the movie yet.
Okay.
Am I in danger for conducting an interview of this nature? Is the staff here at Church Militant in danger?
Now, if everything works, there was a time when the journalist came over from the Indy Star. we talked for 3 hours, and she had everything. I kind of told the whole story, and she was mainly recording the whole thing. She took a few notes, but she had it on recording. She was fascinated too, and then she was so excited. When she got back to Indianapolis, and she was ready to work on it, and she turned on her tape recorder, and it's all static.
You're kidding me.
Nothing recorded. She couldn't believe it. She listened. No.
Trey, are we getting this?
So she says, "You won't believe. I went all the way home. I was so excited to get working on this thing that nothing recorded. It's all static. And would you mind if I came over again?" I said, "Yeah, okay, but." And I said, "Well, what I'm going to do? I'm going to bring someone who's a videographer. We'll videotape the whole thing. I'm going to bring someone who's audio guy too, and we're going to record the whole thing professionally. So I'm going to make sure I get this. So about the next month or so, when she was able to coordinate all this, she brought them all in, and there was that had everything. So
sure. I mean, that sounds off-putting, though. The fact that this has bothered so many people, has vexed so many people. I don't want to, have a 45-minute drive home from studio tonight. I'm like snervous. It's going to be like in The Omen, where you take the picture of yourself and it's got like the shank going through the. If I didn't make it home tonight, guys, it was Lucifer.
Oh, okay.
No,
I know it doesn't like the story being told, so it's. This one is so, and also made Zach's eyesight. He, for whatever reason, he wanted to lock himself, board himself into his house, and then his eyesight got doubled. So he could. CW needed special glasses that he still has to wear to this day to see straight. So it, and put the one doctor in the hospital. So, and then
hospital?
It made him. He was. That doctor had to go, and he did like 8,000 cases, and he says, "I never seen anything like that. Never was I affected like this, and it shut down all my organs. He thought he was going to die. This was shutting down, that was shutting down, this was going, and it was cascading and such. And he goes, I never, anything close to this, So, and I don't think he wanted any. I think he stopped doing this stuff. So he never, and we were.
So the doctor was also convinced of this is the doctor of the children?
No, this is the doctor. That Zach employed. What we were going to do was to have him measure the whole house with, and record whatever. Then I was going to come in, and we were going to conclude the film. And so that it's safe now. I was going to do the final blessings and everything too. I was leaving it kind of open till this all got completed. And then then we were going to end it on a happy note. Say, okay, if you want to move in, you could buy the house. It's safe now. It's fine. So I was going to just prove it. That this is the before, this is the after.
Right.
That's how the film was going to end. But I never got the call. I knew he was coming in, but it was snowy, and I thought maybe they didn't make it in. And then I heard he's concluded the film. He never called me, So, and I called him up. He said, "You won't believe what happened," and it went haywire, So, I had to fire this guy, and the doctor, got all, I had to take care of this doctor here. I, lost my eyesight, and I have to. I'm kind of working through all that, so. So all that, and then he ended up tearing down the house.
The person, and it was somebody who did paranormal investigations for a living. He bought the house, and then after all of these manifestations and what took place for him, he decided to tear down the house.
His own house, yeah.
So it wasn't a happy ending.
No, it ended the way the demon wanted it to end. So I go, I said, that's the worst thing you can't see if you locked it up. Even if I seal it and everything, I don't want it coming back sevenfold. Yeah. So So when you do the final stuff, you want, it to be sealed off, and it's not coming back. So, but now, I can't do anything because it's open area. So, anyone could come back and, do some sort of ritual, and it could come back sevenfold, with all kinds of things. So, and that does happen. I do get a lot of calls on all that.
Well, the words of our Lord, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So the second exorcism, I kind of cut you off. We jumped subjects here, but so that was successful, and that cast out the demon.
That cast out that one. And that one was the big one.
There were multiples. So the top.
So see, it looked like 2 are gone there.
Yeah.
And she felt she had 6. For whatever reason. I don't know why she just felt, So even with that one gone, and then she said, so I wasn't quite sure what to do because we don't have any more names or whatever. And but she says, how about do it in Latin? And I said, okay, but I have to find. I could do the Latin part, but you have responses. But I have to find someone. So let me see if I could find someone to do that. No, people that knew Latin didn't want to be involved with it. And so it was my assistant who did the English part. She says, okay, I don't know Latin, but what you could do is, it's just little short phrases here and there, so if responses. So just record them, how to say it, and I'll kind of put it phonetically in there, and I'll study it, and I'll do the Latin, responses.
Sure.
And so then that one was just before the 4th of July, so none of the officers or none of the other regular people could be involved. But she finally could, she was going to come that time. So I got my brother to be a restrainer, and I had her, and it was just me. No one was recording anything and such. And so during the Latin, as I was doing the Latin, it was interesting that the only thing it would react to is the actual exorcisms, but only I knew what I was saying. No one else knew. But but it's always interspersed with prayers, and so when you did the actual exorcisms, she was reacting, and then when you're doing the prayer things, it was calm.
But she doesn't know Latin.
But she doesn't know. Yeah, there's no way she would know what I'm saying.
That's fascinating.
And no one knew. There was no one really knew what it meant. So no one. I was the only one that knew the Latin, but I was surprised.
Were you? I mean, and again, it's me. I take it from a point of healthy skepticism.
Yeah.
At what point were you like, wow, this is real, this is the real thing?
And I was kind of playing around with it because I would maybe yell out the prayers, try in Latin, and then just say calmly, because I thought maybe it's the tone of the voice. So the next one, no, I could yell out the prayer, and she wouldn't react. And say nicely, the exorcism part, and she would react. So I knew it wasn't even the tone of the voice.
Right.
So I go, that was amazing. So I was personally amazed at that because I know she knew. No one knew what was happening there.
In the second one, when the demons were departing, did you see them depart somehow? Were you aware, like, this is the moment of our parting with these entities?
I would say, she for the second time, she fell asleep. So that was the end.
Sure.
That was okay. It's gone there. Also in the church, you could kind of hear banging. So you'll hear knocking or something, trying to get out the door. It's kind of a frantic knocking or things like that happening. So
you could hear that personally?
You could hear a knock. You could hear a bang. You could hear, like...
That's interesting.
And you could hear it here. You could kind of hear it work its way. It's like once it's out, it wants to get out of the church.
That's what they say in the case of Roland's Doe, the boy who, William Peter Blatty based The Exorcist off of. Once the demon left him, it was in a hospital, then you could hear loud clanging as it left throughout the hall. And apparently that part of the hospital is still sealed off.
Oh, okay.
Or it was the last time I checked.
Yeah.
So that actually... You can connect those dots.
So the third looked like it got rid of 3 or 4, because she would do the reactions were different. You could see one time she was trying to talk, her mouth was moving, but nothing was coming out. And then she stopped doing that. Then another time you could tell she's kind of very restless in the chair and kind of holding onto the chair and things, and and then that kind of would stop. There was three things that, let's see, I should have. There was a third reaction she had that was unique. I can't think of it right now, but and then that would stop. And then she asked, "Did I levitate?" And I said, "I don't think so." And he says, "Yeah, I was holding onto the chair." I said, "Oh, I saw you holding onto the chair," but she felt like she was being pulled up,
No kidding.
So she says,
"That's a weird question. That's not one of your everyday questions."
She was asking that. I said, "Oh, okay. Well, there's a levitating one that So it was maybe trying to pull her up. I mean, she wasn't a little boy or girl. So,
sure.
Yeah, she was a grown woman. So maybe, but you could tell she was trying to hold on to the chair. She didn't want to. But she felt something was lifting her up. So they said, "I don't think you got off the chair, but I do remember you holding on to the chair, And then then one was trying to speak, so I think was trying to say those rhymes or whatever, So I saw her mouth move, but I didn't hear anything, So and see, we didn't record. There was no recording of that.
Of the third.
The third one. Yeah, we just had three people there.
Sure.
And no, Rosa was there and Latoya. So there's just five of us, but none of the other people. And there was a third thing, but I probably remember it later. But
sure, no, that always happens to me too. Okay, so this was performed. The demons were cast out. Mm-hmm. It was a successful exorcism.
Mm-hmm. So I think we got rid of. I said, I saw three different manifestations things you never did before that, three different personalities that stopped, and then she fell asleep and she was snoring, and I said, I think, she says, well, that's five. I feel there's six. And I said, well, okay. Just let us know, if we have to do one more, we could do that, but it's 4th of July, so, coming up, so we'll have to, figure out when everyone can get back together. And she never called, so it seemed like, and the next time I heard her call, she called in the fall to say, I got my court case to get my children back. So this is like October, so you still don't have your children back? And I go, no, this is the court case. So, and she said, could I have a rosary? I'd like to, I said, oh, okay, I'll just come up by after the court case. And she said, okay. And I'd like to hear how it went and everything. And so I had it all ready, and I never, she never showed up. And I go, oh, I hope something didn't happen or whatever. But that was the last time I ever saw her. So.
But to the best of your knowledge, there was a happy resolution in terms of the family.
I found out that later, because she got her children back in November, early November. So that was the court case, and then the court judge ruled she could have her children back, and that was, and so and they were all reunited. They had a big party and everything. So I found out that later, from. Actually, I never really had talked to her since. I think I talked to Rosa a few times, and she would kind of, it's when everything when the story came out and everything. And she mentioned, and she saw some interviews I was doing a lot of interviews and things, and she saw some things I had a little bit incorrect, and so she corrected. I said, okay, yeah, okay, because that's involving you, and, so that's kind of the way I remembered it, but okay, I could tell it that way. And, so, but Latoya, and I heard her no, she's fine, everything's fine, so, she's always worried, that it's going to come back, that's the last thing she wants, so she's always afraid of that. But outside of that, everyone's been fine, since. So.
Yeah, God's more powerful than the devil.
Yeah.
Father, why do you think it's important to have told this story? Obviously, you're here, at expense of time, and there's some difficulty in traveling between states. Why is it important enough to you to tell this story?
Yeah, actually, I had to keep it confidential. So for a whole year, no one knew anything, basically. And then, so when the journalist called me, I said, no, I can't say anything because, there's confidentiality and all this. And she said, oh, Latoya told her part. I said, oh, she told her side. Yeah, she says, yeah. Is there any restrictions that she doesn't want to talk about? And she said, just don't mention the names of the children, And so, oh, okay. So I could say anything. Okay. So no, I'll tell my side. So yeah, and that's how it, Actually, it was supposed to come out during Halloween. So when she came back the second time, it was in September. He says, I think we're going to be targeting Halloween for this to come out. And I do remember her calling just before that, at the end of October, and says, is this the only exorcism ever done in the diocese? And I said, I think so, because they had no one to give it off to. If they had someone, they would have given it to that person. Sure. So that's the only one. And he says, is there confident? There's no confidentiality. Like the seal of confession on this. I said, oh no. If she's telling her story, the church could tell their story. Sure. There's no problem. And she says, oh, okay, that's kind of what we thought. Okay, so, so I was. And I knew some people in Indianapolis, so I was going to have them look for the paper. There might be a little article. I don't know what I wasn't expecting. I don't know what kind of thing would appear there, but but it would be in their paper. And they said, we looked at the whole Sunday edition. There was nothing there. I said, oh, it's past. Okay. Was it the previous? No, they called. They said it was going to come out. And I go, oh, didn't come out for Halloween weekend. So, oh, okay. So I guess maybe they got scared or something. So, sure. So I never heard anything more. Then all of a sudden, I hear that someone called me and said, do you know your story's coming out this weekend? I says, what's January? It's end of January. I said, why? He said, yeah, it's there. It said, look for it. And he says, oh, okay, I'll see. And then it. And it had a video that was done on my porch, which was the video. They put that in, and oh, okay, yeah, okay, that's there, and I got the copy of the article, and they said, oh wow, that's really good. I mean, that was a long one. Yeah, that was really good. And then all of a sudden, it gets in USA Today, and all of a sudden, I'm getting calls from everywhere, about this, and the Riley factor, and all kinds of. I go, oh wow, CNN, all kinds of. Everyone's interested in all this. So it went from I just thought, Indianapolis, the few people who read the Sunday edition might find that, and then all of a sudden it went viral,
right,
from there.
New York Post,
and then it was crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
so I mean, I think there's value in telling this for two reasons. People say you don't want to get caught up in the diabolical, in obsessing over those things. And sure, that's true. It can be an unhealthy fixation. I don't like how in a lot of Catholic circles it is turned into kind of a sensationalist, grifting, clickbait thing. However, we're doing this show because there's merit in it, I think, for a couple reasons. Yeah. Most importantly, in a world full of evil that people chalk up to just mundane, out-of-hand human impulses and concupiscence, and a world that is skeptical and materialistic and atheistic, it is good to remind people that evil, is not just an abstract thing, but there is spiritual battle that's taking place, and that there are the powers of hell that are waging war against the sons of Adam, and that, not everything is just rote and mundane, that there is something else. There is this sort of battle between the powers of hell, the powers of heaven, this cosmic warfare that's taking place, and that it's very real. So there's merit in it for that reason. Also, just to convert the world, because again, if the devil exists, then God exists. Yeah. If a boy can climb backwards up a wall and do a backflip, if a girl can levitate out of her bed, then you need to be Christian. Like, you need to go and become baptized. God exists and your eternal soul is at risk. So that's why we're bringing this here. And I think there's this false modesty, this false humility where people are like, well, we don't want to do a story on this because it's too sensational and I just want to stick to nuts and bolts. It's like, that's like Michael Jordan putting up 65 points and being like, it was a team effort tonight. It's not. It's important to get these stories out there and not have that false humility and that false aversion to wanting to speak to spiritual battle. And we're in a time of great spiritual combat where we see in the Western world the rise of pathological ideologies that can only be ascribed to the powers of hell. Transgenderism is not a natural phenomenon. It's something that can only be
when we want to be the creators.
Right, exactly. That it's nothing. There's no impulse in the human condition, as concupiscent and perverted as it is, where you want to live as a member of the opposite sex. It's completely unnatural. We're witnessing serious spiritual warfare now, and I want to wake people up to that. And I think this interview is going to go far in that. So, Father, we're up against the clock. We've actually done an extended edition of Mic'd Up just for your story. So I want to thank you for your time today. Thank you for coming in. Would you mind, please, giving us a blessing, perhaps some protection so that I don't wrap my car into a tree going home tonight?
Yeah, may the blessing of Almighty God come upon us, and may God's protection, who loves us as His children, always be kept safe under His wing, and receive His blessings always. And may Almighty God bless you all in the name of Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thanks so much, Father.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Okay, thank you. Very good.